Hello, everybody. Welcome to Nay's Garden. You'll see this is not a video that I am playing for you like I usually do of Lee Camp. This is actually Lee Camp. We've got him here live, everybody. I want to say welcome to Lee. Thank you so much for showing up, brother. It's a huge honor for me and my audience to have you here.
Thanks, man. Thanks for the invite.
I just want to give just a little bit of information about Lee, so everybody already knows because I've been talking about you. But Lee's a writer. He is an actor. He is an author. He is a stand-up comic, host of Redacted Tonight, a show that includes current politics and sketch work between Lee and his psychotic roving reporters. Russia TV stand-up comic, unafraid to expose the hypocrisy that is our current political system. Wrote for The Onion. Moment of Clarity is his new podcast. You guys need to all check that out on YouTube. He's doing a joint with Graham Elwood, who everybody knows here. Check that out. He's doing another joint podcast with, I forgot, what is her name? I'm sorry. Is it?
Eleanor Goldfield.
Eleanor. And check out that podcast as well. He's got so much going on. And there's even more credits here. He was featured several times on The Green Room with Paul Provenza on Showtime. And something that we're going to talk about a little bit later, but I'm going to just mention it, was also seen on a Law and Order episode. The character's name was Bart. And we're going to talk about that as well. This is something that I didn't know, and I promised my audience they're going to learn things about you that they didn't know. First and foremost, I want to say, did I miss anything? And if there's anything that you want to promote that you got going on right now, top of the show is when I like to do it. The floor is yours.
You got most of it. I don't know if you said my TV show is called Redacted Tonight, and even though it's on TV, everyone can also watch it on YouTube. So you can get full episodes, youtube.com/Redacted Tonight. So that's the main thing, I guess. Oh, and my new book is at leecampbook.com. It's, comedy, revolution, politics, all those things.
Okay, great, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, I definitely will be mentioning Redacted Tonight more. That is the most exposure that I had to you was through that program. I've watched it all the time. I still catch it when I can. Things are changing with, all podcasts, and people are spread out all over the internet, and it's kind of hard to keep up. I think it's very important that everybody knows that you are doing that podcast, that I think you're just doing so much with it, with Moment of Clarity. When did you start Moment of Clarity? How long ago did that podcast start up?
Well, the name Moment of Clarity has it's got multiple manifestations. It started as short web videos, I'd say in 2010 maybe, and it kept growing, and it ultimately became successful enough that RT asked me to create a comedy show, which is how Redacted Tonight came about, and. But yeah, now it's a live stream I usually do on various topics that everyone can get at leecamp.com. But there is a podcast also called Moment of Clarity that is all of the audio from Redacted Tonight and various other things I do. So that podcast has a lot of my work on it.
Okay. When you were younger and you were into acting, I'm assuming before you were into politics, is that correct?
So I'll give you the quick run by here. I got into comedy writing at age 12. I had never been on a stage, wasn't even that into like acting or anything, but ultimately wanted to stand up, so I started trying that at 17, 18, and then immediately after college went to be a stand-up comedian. So I was performing every night in New York. I was touring the country at colleges, performing there, and so I have been doing stand-up comedy for over 20 years, but the stand-up didn't become too political, very political, until probably I was age 24, 25, the Iraq War and various other things really woke me up to the lies we were being told. And so it was kind of piecemeal. I started putting a little bit of politics in, keeping the other stuff, observational stuff in there, and then eventually it became more and more political and cultural commentary until it was entirely that.
Let me take you back to the Iraq War. Was that the moment of clarity for you?
It was one of the big ones. I'd say, because it was so clear to me that there was no reason for us to invade Iraq, that millions of people would die. And because I wasn't that informed about, really informed about our history, I didn't know that this is kind of the standard operating procedure for the American empire, that we are willing to go into countries and kill hundreds of thousands of people under false pretenses. At that point, I didn't know that the Gulf of Tonkin was lies, and Vietnam was built on so many lies, and they've even admitted that the Gulf of Tonkin didn't actually happen, and so I didn't know all that. So to me, it was a big shock that we were willing to invade Iraq on false pretenses like that. So that was definitely one awakening. I'd say the other secondary biggest awakening was a more personal one of I was one of a few protesters, we're talking maybe 20 or 30 that were trying to save the life of a man on death row named Kenneth Foster in Texas. And I made some phone calls to the governor pretending to be a film crew that wanted to interview him and said that new movie was going to be called Blood on Texas's Hands. And anyway, I would play a small part. There were also activists in Texas sitting in his driveway, but I played a small part in Governor Rick Perry, who killed more people than when Bush was governor in Texas. Like, he loved executing people. He ultimately commuted the guy's death penalty. So the guy lived. And to me, it showed that a very small number of people can save lives, can impact the world. And I wonder whether I would have continued down the political road if I hadn't had that knowledge that a tiny number of people can have an impact.
Where were you getting at that point? I mean, at that early stage in your political journey, where was the source of your information because we were getting spun so much even back then? So what was an accurate source of information for you back then?
Well, so it definitely started as just, I was just watching MSNBC and realizing how much Fox News was lying. And then I started realizing how much MSNBC was lying in just a different way.
Right.
One's lying for the neoliberals, one's lying for the neocons.
Right.
And I'd say a pivotal news source was definitely Democracy Now! I don't know how many people are familiar with Democracy Now!
Yep. Yes.
It's widely watched online, but it's also on cable and stuff.
Yes.
But unfortunately, I don't know what's happened with Democracy Now! I don't know where they choose to always get their info. They have bought into some of the bullshit in recent years. They have fed into the Russiagate hysteria. Mm-hmm. They fed into the white helmets hysteria in Syria. So they still do a lot of good stuff, but it's odd because now it's balanced with this, crappy mainstream narratives that, even former producer of Democracy Now!, Aaron Mate, who now is with the Gray Zone, he's called them out a bunch on Twitter.
I just saw my Jimmy.
It's weird to see a source that was so pivotal. Yeah, it's weird to see a source that was so pivotal in kind of my awakening be something that I don't know that, I can't trust anymore, but yeah.
All right. Well, let me ask you a question around what you like to talk about, what I hear you talking about all the time. And I'm noticing that even in this interview, I'm trying to keep it personal, you'll go and you'll start talking about the things that inspired you, and then you'll start talking about those things. And I want to try to keep those little explosions short because people are going to be able to get that on your podcast all the time, right? That's not why I want you here. All right, listen to this question. One of the things I love about you is you don't give a fuck what people think about you. You got your long hair, you got your unpopular views, you have absolutely no need to share for fear of thinning your audience, yet your numbers grow. And how do you explain you're constantly relaying horrible news all the time, man, and people are growing and people are coming to you and your numbers are getting bigger and bigger. How do you explain that?
Well, thank you. I have to negate some of what you're saying. Our numbers have definitely grown. We've become a very popular TV show, Redacted Tonight. But thanks to a combination of suppression, my Facebook page has been capped for years, and our YouTube is not, even when we post a video, it's not shared with the subscribers. So our numbers have either stagnated or gone down in a variety of ways. And I think it's mostly suppression. But the other thing is that, like you said, I'm not really chasing most of the ratings. If I were chasing the ratings, even as a counterculture guy, I would probably be doing a day by day. This politician said this. Joe Biden did this, and I will criticize Biden, but I don't spend. That's not the bulk of my time. I feel like electoral politics should be a small portion of our discussions, and a lot of our discussions should be about the entirety of our world. I don't know if I'm answering your question correctly or not, but this is the way my mind works, so I don't know how else to answer it.
No, you're answering the question.
So, I mean, that's what's interesting. To make it personal, that's what's interesting to me, and what I feel people should be interested in is the core issues, like what is it at the root that is causing these problems? Unfettered capitalism is the idea of infinite growth on a planet with finite resources. So no matter what that politician said that day or this politician said this day, we still have a gravity of a system that is destroying the natural world. And so to me, that's more interesting than what Nancy Pelosi tweeted.
Right.
So I will insult those politicians, but if I were really chasing views, it should be Nancy Pelosi all the time.
Right,
and I just can't bring myself to do it.
Or an empty Trump podium all the time, but I don't even want to talk about that because my audience is well-versed on that. They're also well-versed on the suppression of your views by YouTube, because me being a cannabis-based channel, I started, 10 years ago, live streaming about 5 or 6 years ago. I got algorithm down. I was doing really well, and I got suppressed. Yep. So my audience really sympathizes with you, Lee, when you talk about the way and it's not just YouTube, it's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's Instagram. All of them have these algorithms set up to suppress us, and my audience knows, man. So we're definitely in your corner, and we understand where you're coming from. Okay, next question. Yeah. From the name Redacted Tonight, and I'm assuming you came up with that name. Was that yours? Redacted?
Actually, fun story. Redacted Tonight is the only thing about Redacted Tonight that I was not involved in coming up with.
Interesting.
The entirety of the show, everything about it. I write all my own stuff. I came up with all the segments. And et cetera, et cetera. But when RT America said, "Can you create a comedy show that's fully yours and you'll have freedom to do what you want?" They said, "Here's a name we like."
I got to tell you, I loved it. You love the name?
Yeah, no, I'm down with the name. The name's good. Yeah.
All right. Should redacting be illegal?
Should redacting be illegal? That's interesting. I'd have to think more about fully illegal, but I do believe that the level of government transparency we've lost, which is what redacting does. It covers up what your government generally is doing. And the amount we've lost is just incredible. I mean, nothing is known about what our leaders are doing. And when something comes out, and I know you don't want me to go off on a rant, but now would be when I would do the Julian Assange rant. When something comes out, that person who revealed it is persecuted, is attacked, is maligned, is the mainstream media jumps in to make sure to insult who they are as a human being. I mean, yes, Snowden, for example, has escaped being imprisoned in the U.S. for 100 years, but he's not escaped the mainstream media calling him all kinds of trash and traitor and all this stuff. So, our government is incredibly hidden, and this is under Obama as well. People love to be like, oh, well, Trump is not, revealing what's going on. It's like Obama avoided more FOIA requests than like any president before him. I mean, there has not been transparency in this government for a long time, if ever. And so, yeah, and they just say national security. They just say the secret words, national security, and everyone goes, ooh, that means I can't even ask. Like, fuck you. It's our goddamn government.
Right. So I heard you. This is a quote from Lee Camp. The completely fair and super awesome trial of Julian Assange.
That's called sarcasm.
You know, it's good writing when someone reads your stuff back to you and it makes you laugh. You're a great writer. And how did the whole Onion thing start? How old were you? How long did you spend there? And I got questions about the Onion, bro.
Yeah, the Onion. You know, when I was in college reading the Onion and just being floored by how brilliant it was, I never thought that I'd get the chance to write headlines for them. But I've been, you know, like I said, I've been doing stand-up over 20 years. At that time, I'd been doing it over, I've been doing it for 10 years or so. And I knew it's very hard to, at least at the time, it was very hard to get in touch with the Onion. I mean, the Onion they wouldn't answer submissions, they wouldn't answer letters for the most part. But luckily, I was doing shows with Baratunde Thurston, who some people might know, another fellow comedian, and he was working for the Onion. And so when Obama got elected in 2008, they decided they were going to do a lot more political headlines, and he recommended me, and it went from there. So I only wrote headlines. I would just send in headlines, and a bunch of them got published, and it was at that time it was a highlight for me to be in the Onion. Yeah.
Did the headline not come with an accompanying story? It was just a headline?
They had in-office staff that would write the stories.
That is awesome. You would give them the frame.
Which I was fine with.
You give them the frame, and then they make the painting. I love it.
Yeah. Which I was fine with because I just wanted to write the headlines. So.
Well, not if you're getting paid by word, bro. Are you getting paid per word?
Oh, you want to know what I got paid for writing for the Onion? I got paid $25 a headline.
Wow.
$25 a headline.
That's not so bad.
So you know,
that's not so bad.
If I got lucky, I'd walk home with $50 that month.
So I've got some questions around the Onion. Okay, it's interesting because you wrote fake news. I mean, you literally partook.
Fake comedy.
It is, but the problem, Lee, and you know the problem with that is how many people out there get fooled by the Onion still to this day. People don't realize, they think it's real, and for someone like you, you're like, I could imagine your attitude just be like, fuck them if they don't get it. But what's your take on all of that whole position?
Well, I would be I think a lot about whether people are getting out of my TV show. The Onion headlines are the Onion headlines. You know, I wrote those for the comedy value for the most part. I like making a point, but if people didn't get the point, it didn't bug me because it was meant to be comedy.
Right.
But with my TV show, which has a lot more nuance, a lot more than just a headline, I hope people are getting out of it what I want them to get out of it. Like, I want to inform people on these issues, and if they're getting the reverse take out of these things, then I have failed. So I often may do a 5-minute segment that's fully sarcastic, like you were quoting the Assange line. You know, I could do a whole 5-minute segment that's like, this trial for Assange is awesome. It's just, they've totally done away with all this annoying, like, precedents and rules and things, and they're just having fun with it, man. Swing for the fences. You know, I could do something like that, but if I just left it at that, you know, and I do that and I go, hey, now we got a break, you're going to have idiots who are like, oh, I guess it's cool then. And I don't, even though they may be idiots, I want them to get the point. So I will often make it overly clear towards the end of the bit as to what the true stance is. Because I don't, a lot of people I know, Colbert Report, the old show, the Colbert Report, was some of the best comedy writing I've ever seen in my life. I think it was brilliant. But a lot of people didn't get the point out of a lot of it. They walked away going, it was funny, I don't know. And I don't want my show to be like that. So.
All right. Well, with, you know, the whole Yellow Vest movement that almost started here, and then the protests that definitely are going on, you know, yeah. I'm always looking to a polarizing figure to kind of bring some sanity to the chaos. Have you ever seen yourself as getting out in the street and marching or polarizing? Or if not yourself, do you look to anyone else for that sort of thing?
That's funny that you apparently did not do your research. I have been at endless protests, and I have been one of the most well-viewed, or I guess well-known videos of me is performing on a wall at Occupy Wall Street. It was within the first couple days. I was there on the first night, and I'd done videos calling for the occupation before it started. And so anyway, I was performing on a wall at Occupy Wall Street where they'd asked me to perform. And so it was kind of comedy, kind of protest, but they're not allowed to have a mic system. They weren't allowed to have a mic system there. So it was all screamed from a wall, which is a unique new brand of performance. But I've been at an endless number of protests, and but I've been to fewer maybe in the past few years, just because I have been so overwhelmed with everything I've been doing. I mean, writing the entire show and I'm basically one of the producers, so I'm producing it as well, and it is truly time consuming. But I'm still out there some. I try and find time here and there, and I also just feel like I tend to help a movement or a protest or an action more by doing the segments about it and raising people's attention to it than necessarily by standing there. But that doesn't mean I don't go out there.
Can you name some people who might be candidates to lead these protests?
To lead protests? Well, I mean, here's the thing is, like, there are amazing activists who are generally not that widely known. People with mutual aid. Often these are people of color, women of color, who the reason they are such incredible activists and organizers is they are on the ground. They're doing the thing. They're at the mutual aid. They're at these protests. They're speaking to people, but they're not television personalities. They're not a stand-up comedian. And so you may see an interview with them here or there, but they're not spending their time, we all have a limited amount of bandwidth in our brains. They're not spending their time trying to figure out how to be on TV the most or write for some outlet the most. And so you probably don't know their names, and I might not even, I don't know a lot of their names, but they are there, and people should find them and speak to them and work with them and volunteer for them. And then you have kind of the quasi-celebrities who are very informed and standing up for what is right, such as the Chris Hedges out there, or yes. A variety of others. But we are personalities, and we have devoted our time to Chris. Will say that he has devoted more time to the state than he'd like to, so he's not planning on getting arrested anytime soon. And so Chris is a great writer and a great speaker. But, if you're looking for the organizers, people should go find them on the ground.
Right. I saw you on your appearance, which was just a segment of your stand-up for the People's Party. And I watched, everyone else speak at that as well. It was an online convention. And I was so happy to see that you took part in that. Even though you couldn't be there personally, it was still, it sent a message. And I just hope more people get that message that party is developing and that they are looking to put those polarizing figures out there. I believe.
Yeah. What I like about Movement for a People's Party, especially right now, is that for one thing, people can get involved with them and find out what they're about and everything without it having to do with the presidential election. They're not running a presidential candidate this year. Right. So everyone who wants to get down in the Biden versus Trump debate can feel free to do that. But you can still look into MPP, what it stands for and everything. And, Nick Brana, I think, has done great work to build that up and build it going forward. And, it's increasingly becoming clear that we need a new party, multiple new parties. The two-party corporate structure has been 100%, 110% bought out, And so that's why you need third parties. I mean, even if it were a third party that I disagree with, it's like you need alternate viewpoints rather than this corporate shit show. And so, yeah, I've done some things for MPP, but I've also, been at events for other parties I agree with, like Green Party candidates. There are people that are anti-corporate and standing for justice and standing against, the endless Wall Street greed and the endless militarism. Like, I will support them, but you're not going to find many in the Democratic and Republican parties.
Right. Okay, so Intoxicated was the name of the episode that you were in. This is a Law and Order episode, everybody. It's was it SVU, Special Victims Unit, right? And how old were you?
Yeah.
How old were you when you did that? Just real quick, and then I want to ask you some questions about it. I'm going to tell you something about it too.
I think I was 24 or 25, maybe.
Wow. Okay. So it seemed like you may have played someone maybe a little younger than your age. Were you trying to play someone a little bit younger?
Yeah, that's what Hollywood's about. They find 24-year-olds and they try and make you play high school kids. So I think I was supposed to be like a senior in high school.
I gotta tell you, man, you fooled me, brother. You freaking fooled me. If I had guessed, I would have said you were younger. So you're a fantastic actor, because mission accomplished there. But one thing you might not know about this, Lee, you guys know Ice-T was in that episode, as well as that amazing cast, which was in every episode of Law and Order SVU. They're all in it. And Lee's right there in the middle getting guns pulled on him by them, right? They pull guns on him, which is beautiful, because if you're going to be in Law and Order, and if you're a fan, you want to be the person that they pull the freaking guns on. But this is the beautiful thing. I've got a still shot. This is this is them.
Oh, no.
This is them pulling you out of the car. And now the beautiful thing, you'll see it says 43 something like 05 in the corner. The reason why it does is because that is the fucking thumbnail for the video when you buy it on YouTube. That's the thumbnail that comes up. It's literally the picture of Lee right there. Yes! I knew you were going to get a kick out of that. Yes!
I didn't know.
I know, man.
I did not know that.
With all those great actors in there.
I have.
It's you, brother. It's you.
That's amazing. Because I only have 5 sentences in that whole thing.
Yeah, but you did them well, man. You did them well.
In fact, if you want the director's cut, it was negative temperatures out there. So Mariska Hargitay was very friendly. Chris Maloney, is that his name? Yes. He was very not friendly, and I think he hated that we were filming in like negative temperatures. And his job was to pull me out of the car and throw me against it. And so, because my mic is on my lapel, he keeps throwing me against it. We do take after take, and the audio guy comes up and tells me, he goes, "Hey, the mic keeps hitting the car. We can't get a good take because your mic keeps hitting the car." And I'm like, "He's throwing me against the car. What do you want me to do?" And he's like, you can't let the mic hit the car. And so then Chris comes up next time, and I tell him, "Hey, the audio guy said that you're throwing me against the car. It's bumping the audio." And Chris Maloney did not give a shit. He was like, "What?" And he just threw me harder the next time.
What a dick.
And so then we had to dub over my lines. I had to go in and tape those lines over because they couldn't get them
the
to
audio
record.
good. That's interesting. So,
yeah.
The one thing I want to say
But
about
I have essentially quit acting. I will have you know.
Well, when was that? When was the date of that? I want to go back to this other thing, but when did you quit acting officially?
I mean, I only really had 2 acting roles. That one, and a Gwyneth Paltrow short film that she directed called Deal Breaker. But outside of that, I maybe acted comedically in some things, but those are the only 2 relatively serious roles. And it was more of an audition thing. I mean, when I was 24, I was okay with doing anything because I just wanted to further my career, whether I perform in anything. But as I became more political and as I cared more about my comedy, I mean, I always cared about my comedy, but as I became more political, I didn't believe in these projects. I didn't want to go out on auditions for like shitty commercials. I didn't believe in the corporations that were behind them. I didn't want to be attached to them. I didn't want to be known with them. So, and also a lot of auditions are just humiliating. I don't know. None of it ever really spoke to me. My comedy was always my front and center. I get to speak my own mind. I'm not speaking someone else's lines. And so I did a couple of things when I was under 25, but I basically never went out after that for an audition.
I got you. So well, the one thing I noticed, I mean, you're good at everything you do. When you did the lines, I mean, I didn't realize those were voiceover lines. You had an opportunity to really decide how you're going to vocalize those lines, and you didn't overplay it. When I watched that scene and I listened to your words, I was really conscious of it. I watched it a few times. You're very believable and you're very natural. And I just wanted to give you that compliment. Back then, you really seemed to know what you were doing.
Well, I'll give you, I know you're looking for the personal. I'll give you something else personal, which is that I think that comes from my stand-up comedy, because my comedy, I've always hated when comedy sounds too aggressively rehearsed. And a lot of comedians, it's not true for Redacted Tonight anymore because I'm doing new stuff every week that I've written, but most stand-up is honed and perfected. It's done over a span of weeks, if not years. And for me, sometimes that was the case. You know, you pull out an old joke and you throw that in, and I've done it 1,000 times, but I do it again just to get the crowd. And the key to me was, how do I make it sound and feel new? And so I always wanted to have the pauses and the stuttering and the real life speak in my comedy. And so that's kind of how my comedy grew, rather than, I think a lot of comedians don't really worry about that. They just say the lines that they have honed. And to me, it was always about making it sound real and sound genuine. So.
Right, and I've noticed that about your comedy style, and that's something I'm so glad you brought it up, because I've got a million questions. That's something that I've always wished I'd become, was a stand-up comic, and I ended up being a singer instead. And I yell at the audience to be quiet and listen to the band. It doesn't work that way though. Do
you get to tell jokes between songs?
Really bad ones, really bad jokes. I'm horrible. So, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I don't know how much time you have, but I've got so many questions for you. What was your most memorable or favorite venue that you did stand up?
Oh man. I'd probably say that, I mean, up near the top is the one that I taped for my comedy special at El Rey Theater in Los Angeles. Anyone can watch the special for free at LeeCampAmerican.com, but it's rare that you get to play those really nice theaters. I mean, for an average comedian, obviously there's massive names who play those all the time, but it's rare that you get to play those really nice theaters, and that one was particularly special because it was 2 nights of sold-out crowds just for my show, which was really exciting to do. So that was a big night. But you know, I've been on some cool stages. I mean, even just the best known comedy clubs in New York, the Comedy Cellar. When I first got passed to the Comedy Cellar, it was incredible to even be on that stage. You know, in the younger days of my comedy, and even just Caroline's. I've taped things at Caroline's on Broadway. And then there's overseas, you know, stuff. The Edinburgh Fringe Festival, the Stand Comedy Club in Edinburgh is known for being one of the best in the UK, and to share that stage with some of the greats. I was on shows with you know, Stuart Lee and various others. That it was just cool to even share the stage with them. So yeah, it's been incredible.
Wow. So when you were, before you were acting, before you were trying to decide on a career, you had any like just regular jobs? Like I worked at Popeye's Fried Chicken. That was my first job. I worked at Popeye's.
Yeah.
What kind of normal jobs did you have?
So the normal jobs?
Yeah.
So after college, I mean, I had various jobs in college while I was also doing stand-up, you know, lawn maintenance and shit like that. Oh, I worked in special collections at the UVA library, so I was like categorizing Civil War notes, handwritten Civil War letters from soldiers that I got to touch and actually look at. And,
Wow, that's cool.
But then when I before I moved to New York to become a comedian, I did 3 months, a 3 month tour at TGI Fridays, which I
Nice.
still have PTSD from. That taught me a lot. If you've never worked in food service, just for a month or two, just to learn the fucking world it is and how annoying it is and how everyone's a dick and just all that stuff. People should all learn it.
Yeah, it's a
and then when I moved to New York, luckily I had about a year of interning at crappy jobs of just filling data into spreadsheets. And luckily, it only took me, within the first year, I was able to start make a living as a comedian because I got a lot of college touring. So I was performing at colleges, which paid the bills. And so luckily, I've been a full-time comedian for coming up on 20 years.
Okay, I'm going to ask you some lightning round questions. Just try to go through these as quick as you can, okay? Who are your political influences? Give me some names.
Political.
Yeah.
So these are specifically politicians, huh?
Well, no. Like for instance, if you want to say someone like Noam Chomsky, someone that's a political pundit,
Okay.
or
Okay, yeah.
Because I would personally want to exclude all politicians too. I'm with you on that, Lee. I'm like, I got to pick politicians.
Yeah. In that case, yes, Chomsky's on there, Chris Hedges, even some people that used comedy in creating change. So like Abby Hoffman and the Yippies did that. The Yes Men, I got to work with them a little bit, and they've done incredible kind of using of comedy to create a message, to create change. So yeah, those are some big ones. Then of course there's comedians. There's people like Carlin and Bill Hicks, and Doug Stanhope had some very impressive years where he was putting more politics into his comedy, and it was brilliant stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, those were all influential on me.
Okay, so that's also comedic influences. Because, I used to love The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. I used to love that show. And man, I went on watching John Oliver and Stephen Colbert